Let's start with one of the most terrifying takes on Santa Claus ever created. Robot Santa from Futurama isn't just a malfunctioning machine. He's a 4-ton killing machine with impossibly high standards for what constitutes nice behavior.
Shopkeepers not paying their protection money. Exactly as naughty.
What makes Robot Santa so awful is his twisted logic.
Due to a programming error, Santa's standards were set too high, and he invariably judges everyone to be naughty.
If he catches you after dark, he'll chop off your head and stuff your neck full of toys from his sack of horrors.
His programming determines that virtually everyone is naughty, which means virtually everyone deserves to die. He doesn't just threaten coal in your stocking. He threatens to turn your intestines into tinsel.
You dare bribe Santa? I'm going to shove coal so far up your stocking you'll be coughing up diamonds.
The horror comes from watching a figure that's supposed to represent unconditional love and generosity become an unstoppable force of judgment and violence. Robot Santa represents our fear that we're never good enough, that someone is always watching and finding us wanting. Robot Santa embodies what I call the corruption of innocence. But there's something deeper here. Robot Santa embodies the anxiety many people feel during Christmas about living up to impossible standards. He's the manifestation of Christmas perfectionism taken to its logical, murderous extreme. Burgermeister Meisterburger uses his position as mayor to outlaw joy itself, banning all toys in Somber Town after a traumatic experience with a toy duck.
I hate toys, and toys hate me.
What makes Burgermeister particularly terrible is how he turns a personal grudge into public policy. One bad experience leads him to decide that no child should ever experience the joy of playing with toys. He's not just taking away Christmas, he's taking away childhood itself.
There'll be no more toy makers to the king.
The explanation for his behavior reveals a man so consumed by his own pain that he's willing to inflict it on an entire generation of children. He represents every authority figure who has ever let their personal issues become everyone else's problem. What makes him especially awful is his persistence. Even when he sees how miserable the children are, even when he witnesses the joy that toys bring, he doubles down on his ban. He'd rather rule over a town of miserable children than admit he was wrong. These brothers represent the third element of terrible Christmas villains, the perversion of natural order. Heat Miser and Snow Miser control the world's weather, but their sibling rivalry threatens to destroy Christmas itself. What makes them awful isn't their individual powers, it's their complete inability to compromise. They're so consumed with their territorial disputes that they're willing to let Christmas be canceled rather than work together for one day.
I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm Mr. Snow. I'm Mr. Green Christmas. I'm Mr. Sun.
The horror comes from watching two beings with godlike powers act like petulant children. They have the ability to bring joy to the world, but they're too busy fighting to care about the consequences of their actions. Their explanation reveals something disturbing about power. When you have enough of it, other people's suffering becomes abstract. They're not evil in the traditional sense, but their selfishness has evil consequences. The Bumble represents pure, primal terror, a creature that hates everything about Christmas and wants to destroy anyone associated with it. What makes him awful isn't his size or strength, but his relentless pursuit of innocent creatures. The explanation for the Bumble's behavior is simple. He's a predator who sees Christmas characters as prey. He doesn't have complex motivations or tragic backstories. He just wants to hunt and kill, and Christmas gives him plenty of targets. He's mean, he's nasty, and he hates everything to do with Christmas. What makes him particularly terrifying is his persistence. He doesn't give up, he doesn't get distracted, and he doesn't show mercy. He represents the fear that some threats can't be reasoned with or avoided. They can only be faced. The Bumble embodies our fourth element, the embodiment of primal fear. He's not trying to corrupt Christmas or make a point. He's just a force of nature that happens to be hostile to everything we hold dear. Here's a villain that embodies one of the most awful aspects of the holidays, family greed. Cousin Mel doesn't just want money. She wants to destroy the family business that represents generations of Christmas tradition, and she's willing to tear apart her own family to get it. What makes Mel particularly terrible is how realistic her evil is. We all know someone like her, the family member who shows up to Christmas dinner calculating what everything is worth, who sees sentiment as weakness and tradition as an obstacle to profit. But Mel goes beyond typical family dysfunction. She actively works to keep Grandma missing, knowing that her disappearance is tearing the family apart. She's willing to let a family suffer through Christmas without their matriarch just to get her hands on a store.
Grandpa's gonna sue the pants off of Santa. That's what Grandpa's gonna do. Woo-hoo!
The real awfulness comes from her musical number where she gleefully celebrates the destruction of everything the family holds dear. She's literally singing about destroying Christmas magic through legal action, turning the wonder of Santa Claus into a court case. Professor Hinkle represents the weaponization of adult authority against childhood wonder. He's not just a bad magician. He's an adult who uses his position to terrorize children and destroy their joy. What makes Professor Hinkle so awful is his complete inability to accept that something magical happened with his hat. Instead of marveling at the miracle of Frosty coming to life, his first instinct is to reclaim ownership and destroy the magic. That hat brought Frosty to life. The truly awful moment comes when he locks Frosty in the greenhouse. This isn't just attempted murder, it's torture. He knows exactly what will happen to a snowman in a hot enclosed space, and he's willing to make children watch their friend melt to death just to prove a point about ownership. Professor Hinkle represents every adult who has ever crushed a child's imagination, every authority figure who has prioritized rules over wonder. Harry and Marv aren't just bumbling burglars. They are predators who specifically target homes during Christmas, knowing families will be away celebrating. They represent the violation of home security during the most sacred family time.
Merry Christmas.
What makes them truly awful isn't their incompetence with Kevin's traps, it's their persistence. Even after realizing they're being outsmarted by a 10-year-old, they escalate to promising actual violence. We're going to do exactly what he did to us. We're going to burn his head with a blowtorch. The horror comes from watching two grown men become so consumed with revenge against a child that they're willing to commit actual violence. They represent every parent's nightmare, strangers who want to hurt their children when they're most vulnerable. They embody our fifth element, the violation of sacred spaces. They don't just steal presents, they violate the sanctity of the home during Christmas, turning a place of safety into a hunting ground. Now, Jack Skellington isn't evil, but his attempt to take over Christmas makes him one of the worst Christmas villains because of the sheer terror he inflicts on children worldwide. His good intentions make his actions even more awful. What makes Jack terrible as a Christmas figure is that he fundamentally misunderstands what Christmas is about. He sees the surface elements, the presents, the decorations, the pageantry, but misses the heart of it entirely. What's this? What's this? There's something very wrong. The explanation for Jack's behavior reveals something disturbing about good intentions gone wrong. He genuinely wants to bring joy, but his version of joy is nightmare fuel for children. He gives shrunken heads instead of dolls, snakes instead of toys. Jack represents the fear that sometimes the people trying to help us are the most dangerous of all, because they can't see the damage they're causing. Oogie Boogie represents pure sadistic evil. He's not trying to save Christmas or fix anything. He just wants to torture Santa Claus and Sally because he enjoys causing pain. What makes Oogie Boogie so awful is his complete lack of motivation beyond sadism. He's built an elaborate torture chamber not for any grand purpose, but simply because he enjoys watching others suffer. The horror comes from watching someone who's completely divorced from empathy. Every moment of his victim's terror brings him genuine joy. He dances while he threatens them, sings while he plans their deaths. Oogie Boogie embodies our sixth element, the celebration of cruelty. He represents the fear that some people are simply broken, and there are individuals who can't be reasoned with because they fundamentally enjoy causing pain.
There's one thing I hate. All the noise, 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 noise.
And here we have the worst Christmas villain of all time. The Grinch represents the most psychologically devastating type of Christmas antagonist, one who's been broken by the very holiday he's trying to destroy. What makes the Grinch so awful isn't his actions, it's his motivation. He's driven to destroy Christmas because he can't bear to be reminded of his own isolation and pain. Every laugh from Whoville is like a knife twisting in his heart.
Stop Christmas from coming.
His plan reveals the depth of his psychological damage. He doesn't just want to stop Christmas, he wants to prove it's meaningless. He wants to validate his own emptiness by making everyone else feel it too. All the Who's down in Whoville were singing without any presents at all. The most awful moment is when his plan fails and he's forced to confront that his pain was self-inflicted. He could have had what the Who's had all along, but his bitterness prevented him from seeing it. The Grinch embodies our final and most devastating element, the mirror of our own darkness. He's us at our worst, isolated, bitter, convinced that if we can't be happy, no one else should be either. What makes him the worst of all is that he's redeemable. His evil comes from pain, not malice, which means all his cruelty was just a defense mechanism against suffering. The most awful realization is how much pain could be prevented if we just reached out to those who seem unreachable. What Christmas villain do you think is the worst? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next video.